Hello, welcome to episode 2 of Drunk Glish. Appropriately for this one, I do have a beer right here. Last time I did not. Oh yeah, because the whole point of this is to relax and have a beer and see how the language flows. This is quite interesting. So I don't know this is disgusting because I don't know if it should be or it's just because it's old. This is a Ukrainian beer from Pravda Brewery in Lviv. Um, and it's called Vision of Europe. It's buckwheat honey brown ale, proudly brewed in Ukraine. Now it's weird because it's buckwheat. I'm not a huge fan of buckwheat. Um, and I feel bad, like I think my Ukrainian friends would be upset with me for saying that, but I'm just not a huge fan of it. And this beer is kind of maybe it'll grow on me, but see, the thing is, I don't know if it's the beer itself or the fact that it said it had to be drunk by the 19th of April 2024. It's almost a year past its date. So anyway, my first episode, I did not have any beer. This one I do. This is just a quick introduction because I have a guest coming up, a very special guest, Kirstie, who did her CELTA in Germany 2007. What's that? 18 years ago, and we had a nice little chat talking about her CELTA memories and a few of my CELTA memories. And it was because it was at 10 o'clock in the morning. It was a little too early to drink. I'm not that bad. So, yeah, we had a coffee or a cup of tea together and talked about some CELTA reflections. Now, my CELTA reflections are a bit of a blur because it was a fun month, almost too much fun, a little bit too much partying, as I mentioned in the first episode. In the you see, guys, on my first beer for God's sakes, I had like a sip. So, in future episodes, I will share. Yeah, I know it's called Drunklish, but for goodness sakes, people, I've like had barely a sip of this stuff, and it is 6.8%. You see that? 6.8. I don't know if you can see. But I mean, God, one sip shouldn't do this to me. But the CELTA, it was 20 years ago I did it. It was fun. Too much partying, too much drinking. One thing Kirstie and I discussed is I kind of asked her for some tips and advice, and she just said something very, very wise. It was advice I did not follow 20 years ago because I had no idea how hard it would be. Is if you're doing a 4 week intensive full-time CELTA, then prepare to work hard. It's not easy. It's quite a steep learning curve. There's a lot to learn. I remember the first day of my CELTA, they told us in the morning that we were going to teach our first lesson that afternoon, and 8 of us kind of freaked out. There were 9 of us on the course. That one person, my friend Gen, she had taught before in Japan, so she was experienced. Said, it won't be so bad. But I thought to myself, how the hell are we going to teach? Today, this afternoon? So that was just the beginning of it. It is a lot to take in. There's a lot to learn, and listen to Kirstie's wise words. If you're interested in doing a CELTA, or you're just reflecting on your own CELTA, or you're just a student or anybody interested in how the CELTA works. So I'll have a lot more stories to share with you in the future. For now, just relax, have a listen, and see what Kirstie has to say. And yeah, heed her wise words, not mine. Hey, good morning. This is Drunklish, and I have my first sort of victim slash guest. I'm very grateful for Kirstie agreeing to join me. This is all very experimental, but we are here. I am here especially because it was 20 years ago that I started my CELTA, and I'm feeling particularly reflective, nostalgic, sentimental. I mean, I'm always like this, but I wanted to get Kirstie and others on this program, this channel, whatever it's called, to reflect on their Celta experiences. And it's very fitting that I don't know Kirstie at all because that's how the Celta kind of works. You sort of show up to become an English teacher, whether it's a career plan or whether it's just a short, in my case, it was a 2 year thing that turned into a career. But we're all, you show up and you're surrounded by all these new faces, and you might be nervous, you might be shy. Who knows? You have no idea what you're getting into. Kirstie, could you tell us a little bit about what you can remember from your CELTA experience?
Yeah, I'll start with why I chose. to do CELTA rather than in England, you could have done a PGCE, so a postgraduate certificate of education, and then go and teach in a school. Um, and there were a couple of reasons. The first is I don't like teenagers very much. Um, the second is, or was, I didn't want to stay in the UK. I wanted to move to Germany just as an experiment. Not knowing any German at that point, what could I do? I'll be an English teacher. Um, and I also wanted to work with people. Um, I'd been working on a research project actually with old handwritten documents, with old manuscripts. There's no money in manuscripts. There's less money in manuscripts than there is in EFL. Um,
Mhm.
so, and that to get, so wanting a bit of a career change and also wanting to work with people, wanting to move, I decided to do a CELTA. Um, and that was just coming up for 18 years ago.
Okay.
Um,
So, yeah, I've got you beat by 2 years then.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah. I'll be, yeah, reflecting more when I'm up for 20 years.
sure.
But
Well,
18 years is it's been a ride. So,
sure, sure.
um,
Why
and
Germany,
what do
if I
I,
can ask?
um, I always felt very, very well in Germany. I'd been
Mhm.
on a lot of holidays to Germany when I was a student. Um, and there's something about the culture just clicked. Um, and then I started to, the culture in the UK at that time, the politics weren't really clicking with me. They're still not clicking with me, but that was when it started. And I thought, as an experiment, see how you get on in Germany. If you don't like it, you can go home. But I came in 2010 and I've been here ever since. So I taught for a couple of years in the UK before I came out, but just to sort of get my feet, and then I came. So
And when you did your CELTA, did you have an idea of how long you planned on teaching? Was it a career thing or just something to try out for a bit?
it was more, so far as I thought further than getting out of the country. I think it was more a career thing, um, but I hadn't expected the career possibilities that I found since. I hadn't expected that there was a whole materials development side that I could get into. I hadn't heard of Delta. I'd only heard of CELTA. Um, I hadn't expected there to be degrees in TEFL or TESOL. So yeah, I was just sort of almost, it was almost a snap decision. Then I applied, then I realized what I got into, and then I actually liked it. So um, that's how it all started.
And the CELTA itself, how did you get on during that? Did you find it a struggle? Was it challenging?
It was challenging. Um, the I found it going back to what you were saying at the beginning about meeting new people. I found it socially quite challenging,
Hmm.
and sort of being out there on a stage for the first time. You're standing in front of people and they're expecting you to know stuff and tell you things and learn from you. And I'm not a spotlight person.
Hmm.
Um, so I found that quite difficult. Um, I found the pressure, the time pressure, quite difficult because everything's new. You have to learn how to plan a lesson, you have to learn how to teach a lesson. You've got a lot of input to cram into the 4 weeks. Um, and yeah, the time pressure was the thing that got to me. I think on my CELTA course, I can't remember how many of us there were, but we all cried at some point because we were just tired.
Yeah,
We were really, really, really tired. Um, and that was a big change to Delta, which also had the time pressure, but that was we were learning, but it was like one stage up. It wasn't all completely new. It wasn't jumping straight into cold water. We were swimming a bit. Um,
sure.
and it was just taking it that one stage further. Nobody cried during Delta
Okay,
that I
progress.
saw. So that
Okay,
was progress.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
I
I remember being very, very tired during
Sure. Yeah,
CELTA.
I mean,
Yeah.
I remember as well. I can't remember if I cried, but there definitely was crying. We had two Celta tutors. One of them was like a sadist. I mean, he was just really tough. And I
Mm,
can't remember his surname, but he later on, he's kind of a big name in the TEFL field. He's published stuff. His first name is
mm,
Sean, but I just cannot for the life of me remember his surname. But then we had Naomi, who was sweet. She was nice. So we had sort of like the yin
mm,
and yang, but there were
yeah.
tears from the other course participant. There was stress. There were threats of, failing and I
Mm,
remember during one of my lessons, it was a disaster. I failed it so badly because it was a reading lesson and we had 40 minutes and I think I spent 25 minutes pre-teaching vocabulary badly.
mm,
And at
mm.
one point, Sean was in the back of the room with his hands on his head, just going like, doing this, going, no, 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 no. And
Oh.
then this guy shouldn't say this, but he took out his mobile phone very, demonstrably and was just like playing on it as if to say, like,
Oh.
this is ridiculous and I'm not going to pay attention. And I
Mm,
thought, is this deliberate? Is this the way are they trying to scare us? Are they trying to really be?
yeah.
But I guess
CELTA.
maybe it toughened us up. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. CELTA observations have put the fear of God into me
Yeah,
whenever anybody observes me, even today. And the
okay.
CELTA flag goes up in my
Yeah,
head and I'm nervous. And um, I don't know how much that has changed since we did CELTA, whether people are more approachable maybe now.
yeah.
Um, I wouldn't I don't want to say softer because you've got to get it right. It's got to be rigorous. But I remember being terrified during my observations, and that still haunts me today.
My
Um,
goodness, it's like trauma, or. I I mean, I hope it really isn't so severe.
I don't dream about it.
Okay,
Um,
that's good.
I don't dream about it. But if anybody says, "Oh, we're going to observe you," is that all right? Yeah, I suppose so.
I
Um,
mean, nobody likes observations, right?
no,
No.
no, no.
I don't know. I remember, I don't like them either, but I do remember one of my former academic managers always saying
Mm,
something. It's obvious perhaps, but he said, fearing observations and getting nervous is the sign of a good teacher, a natural person. It shows you care
mm,
and you're human.
mm,
And if it were
mm.
the opposite, then it was kind of like almost like you're a psychopath and sort of abnormal in a way. Like you're just sort of
Yeah.
blasé and like, yeah, I'll be fine. I'm gonna get, maybe I'm a bit complacent or something.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, yeah.
So you have a Delta now and you're a materials
Mm.
writer as well. So certainly one thing I'm curious what you think about this is when I was doing my Delta, it's almost like the things you learned on the CELTA, you can now kind of break all the rules, but the
Yeah,
Delta justifies it in a way.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So
It was
suddenly you're
quite,
not maybe pre-teaching vocabulary anymore because you think, wait a minute, this is what the CELTA taught me to do, but I'm not
yeah,
going to do this anymore. I'm gonna, you know,
yeah, yeah. And the idea, I remember one of our Delta teachers saying, you can cock it up as long as you justify it afterwards.
sure.
Yeah. And that was very, very liberating. Um,
Mhm.
and the idea that you could break the rules. Um, for all that Delta's a little bit straitjacketed, I think still. um, but um, that you could break the rules, that you it wasn't all or nothing. If something went wrong, you could rescue it and you could acknowledge that afterwards and say, this happened and this was the consequence, so I did this. Um, it was very liberating, definitely. I remember sort of weights almost falling from my shoulders, the thought that, I can get it wrong, but justify it and you're all right. Yeah, yeah.
I'm kind of probably putting you on the spot a little bit here, but if you had any advice or anything for somebody considering doing a CELTA or about to start a CELTA, I mean, what would you tell them as a way to cope with it, or just as a tip or anything?
Um, don't plan to do anything else at the time you're doing your CELTA if you're doing it full time,
Okay.
is one thing. Um, and the other thing, it sounds a little bit cliched, but be open-minded.
Hmm.
You meet a lot of new people, we were saying. You can learn as much from the students that you have as you can from the tutors, I think. You can learn from people's reactions.
Yeah.
You can um, you can learn from how the lesson came across, how the material works. It might be a great lesson with one group. You try it with somebody else and they don't want to know. So
Yeah.
you can learn from everybody, be open-minded. Um,
Okay.
don't um, don't go in thinking you have to be able to do it all straight away. We were there to learn, and
Yeah.
it was hard work, but we learned it.
See, I did not, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your perspective, I did not really follow your advice of only, working hard on the CELTA itself. It
Mm,
was, I was in Prague. It was fun. We had too much fun. And funnily enough, I'm drinking, even though this is called drunk glish, and the idea is like, okay, have a drink or, whatever, relax. This is tea. And I feel like I have a hangover right now, even though I haven't had a
mm,
drink in 3 days. I feel rough, and I think it's psychological from reflecting. I'm not kidding.
mm.
It's almost like revisiting my Celta and how rough
Yeah,
it was because we just had too much fun with it, I think, and struggled. And I think that's fantastic advice to really, it's hard work.
yeah,
I became a CELTA teacher trainer and tutor many years later, and I had to sort of say, guys, don't do what I did. You need to work
yeah,
hard here. So,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
okay.
That's something I'd like to do in the future. I'm looking at opportunities to train to be a CELTA tutor because
Mhm.
for all its hard work, I'd kind of like to do that journey again with other people.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Thank you very much, Kirstie. I'm mindful of your time. I don't want to take up any more of it,
thank
but I'm
you.
very grateful, and I appreciate all your insights and reflections. And I hope I haven't sort of, what's the word, stirred up any past trauma or anything.
No, not at all. It's done good to talk about it. And
Okay.
yeah, thank you for having me. So,
Cool.
yeah.
Thank you very much.